All right, everybody. How's everybody doing? Sorry I'm late. Robert, the stream is happening. All right, just a little hang up, but I'm here. All right, settle in. How's everybody doing? All right, get rid of that. Hello, hello. All right. Okay. I thought I got the date wrong. No, 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 no. Just a little too busy of a day. That's all. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to let me know. Just getting back to these guys, getting back to this book. For those wondering, pick up a great anatomy book if you haven't yet. It's awesome, fantastic references. Maybe focusing. I guess going to tighten up the arms and the hands. Yeah, but not like I need much reference for the hands. But we'll get back to the other parts after that. Pat to art. What's up? Hello, hello. Alex, how's it going, sir? So I'm just creating some skin impression here, some pressure between the 2 points of contact. But I don't want it to be completely, physically accurate in that sense, because I want these two parts to bullying together. So I'm going to have them mesh together at one point. So like Dynamesh, they'll fuse together at the point of intersection, so that it creates a strong, stronger piece, to hold up Cupid. Any advice on going through the interview process as a digital sculptor? Streets of Rage character? I don't know. I should be. That'd be fun. I love Streets of Rage. As far as advice for interviews, I mean, they want to know what you're like. I want you to be honest, be confident. Um, it's hard to know exactly. I mean, there's of course like always general best practices, but not sure. It depends on the company you're interviewing with. What they're looking for. But if you have an interview, at least that means they like your work, and that's important. Because depending on what the position is, let's be honest, they might just need a grunt, an art monkey, somebody just go in and just do the work like a robot, just paint by numbers, which is a lot of jobs. So they just need to know basically that you can follow orders very well, follow directions, that you're technically knowledgeable of whatever software you're expected to use, which would probably be ZBrush more than likely in this case, and Maya. And then it's just a matter of I see too low here. And then it's just a matter of showing them you can perform. Depends if they want to put you through like an art test or something, which I think are always lame, because I think any good creative director should be able to tell from your portfolio and from an interview what you're capable of doing. But I've done a few art tests here and there, and it almost feels like it's certain companies that will hire a lot of junior artists or people that they don't have a lot of confidence in, or they want to just because they can pay them less. That they'll give them art tests just to make sure that they know what they're doing. But I still feel like it's lame. Um, in general, you know what I mean? Like if it was for feels like for Valve, like of course I'd be happy to do it. I even took an art test back in the day for The Last of Us 2 when I was thinking about working for Naughty Dog, and at the end they just went in a different direction with their dog production, I guess, because I took an art test for doing a dog, and I was happy with the way the dog turned out. I thought it turned out just fine. I actually reused that asset and changed it up a bit, and I can show you guys. I did this for a magazine ad. It's in the background, but I used the same model and then modified it a bit. So this is that dog actually, um, but it's been changed up a bit. But this is same base model for a background asset. So this is off in the distance. So it's probably overkill for that actually, as far as just detail and whatnot. It's supposed to be an angry pup. I can turn off the lenses here because the eyes were supposed to be clear. Those are clear lenses, but this is an angry Great Dane female. Muddy. Oh, it's not even. Yeah, I think this is not even the highest. Or it is the highest res, but I think I killed the upper layers. Um, yeah, so it's lost some detail still, but it's also a background asset. But anyway, You know, when it was a neutral pose, it looked identical to the photo that they gave me for reference. So, but yeah, art tests are rare. I mean, I feel like they're not as common as maybe they used to be. Maybe I just haven't really needed to apply to a lot of places. So maybe I'm just underexposed to that area at this point. Because for the last multiple gigs that I've had, no art tests, but interviews. I mean, even then, it's I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around from your question, but to answer your question, I mean, any advice? Just be confident, be friendly, be smile, make eye contact if ever possible. If it's through the camera, that kind of doesn't help. But I mean, the subconscious, the psychology of like actually looking at somebody, it still has an impact. So you could play to that strength a bit. I don't know. I mean, it's been so long since I've done a really formal interview, and usually I don't really have I don't get the butterflies really at all anymore about anything pretty much. Um, just be confident, be friendly. You know, your work should speak for itself, and that's I think like 80% of the hiring process for most jobs. Unless they're looking to hire you like full time, they want you to be staff. Then I get why they want to interview you a little bit more in depth and take some time to get to know you. Pardon me while I eat something soup quick. Mm. That being said, it depends on the gig, really. Mm. So yeah, I think it's just usually it's just depends on the gig, depends on the company, but a lot of times the general parameters just you know are you suitable to work in a team? You know, do they want? I guess they're maybe looking out for any like glaring issues that you might bring up. Like if you're I don't know, you got some skeletons closet that you're really opposed to like taking direction from somebody, or I don't know. You know, I mean, if they can, I think it could just be get a feel. You know, it could be just it really. But yeah, it always depends on who's hiring. But yeah, in general, I mean, I think if you're someone who's even moderately experienced for a couple years in this industry meaning the broad spectrum of entertainment industry, whether it's toy production or work for films. If you've been around the block a bit, you know how the game is played, and you know what work is expected. It's just a matter of just doing a good job, showing up on time, like working, meeting deadlines, exceeding deadlines if possible. Um, and just having a good portfolio, a good reel, and just being a kind, friendly person that's professional and courteous and gets your work done on time, or goes beyond a little bit above and beyond. But don't kill yourself either, because I think a lot of younger people, younger. I mean, I'm not saying you're a younger artist necessarily, but a lot of I think younger or inexperienced artists will, and I'm even guilty of this sometimes too. We just if you really like a project, you just go full hog, like just whole hog, just all in, more than's needed, and that can be great sometimes. But you're not gonna don't expect a bonus, don't expect extra pay, don't even expect them to really care or remember past the deadline. As soon as it's over with, so much of the time it's just like, all right, what have you done for me lately? Like, okay, you did great on that project, but now here's a new challenge, and everything's kind of reset to some degree. I mean, some great employers might really remember if you just pulled in a clutch move and just really saved their ass. It's some like emergency 911 kind of need, and I've been around there a couple times where I've been called from like for 911. We need these characters done by this time frame, and we like your work. We know you can do the work. Can you just give us X, Y, and Z between now and blank? Usually a short amount of time, like where it's you've got to just that's when you kind of do have to kill yourself, you know what I mean? Especially because usually the pay is really good too. If it's a 911 call, you can ask for a pretty handsome pay raise or pay rate, and you know, you know, I mean, we're talking like around or above or below, around 100 an hour, depending on your level of expertise and seniority. Um, but that's like here in LA. So just telling you guys the truth. I want everybody. See, this is the thing. Like people are like, why do you talk about price sometimes, or why? Like because people should know. And I think the problem is people are too secretive about pay rates, and because of that, younger people are naive or ignorant, and they undercut more senior people. But we're not talking about like people who have like millions in the bank. We're just talking about people who are just been around the industry a bit longer, maybe a lot longer, but still, everybody's got to make a living. And if you have people who are skilled but undervaluing their skill set and themselves, they're hurting everybody, especially themselves first and foremost, because they're getting taken advantage of. They're getting less money for the same amount of effort and work that they should be getting paid a lot more for. And in turn, then they're setting a new low bar precedent for any future people to compete against, where they need to make more money just because they either have a family, they have children, they have a wife, they have someone else to support, and their living expenses are insane out in California and all the major hubs: San Francisco, Seattle, New York. So it's always to the benefit of a high tide raises all ships, for everyone to know what they should be charging, what they're worth. And again, I'm talking about rates that are leaning more toward the senior level, like higher mid to like senior and up. Only because I've been around long enough to to be able to know what I'm worth, and to have the within the right areas to know my value. I think everybody needs to be aware of their value and be able to charge appropriately. Um, and the more experience you get, the more you should be able to ask for, to a certain degree. I mean, there are ceilings, to certain positions and industries, or professions. And once you hit those ceilings, you're really not going to be able to get much more unless it's a 911, like I said, unless it's a total emergency, or you change from being a senior 3D artist to then being like visual effects supervisor, or lead 3D artist, or lead, creative director. You start taking a more kind of managerial kind of approach to your creative industry, which a lot of artists really kind of lament after a while. The money sounds good at first, and it's like, oh, I can just, some people think, they can just manage our few artists, set them off on their own, and then we'll come back and can just do their own thing then, or like have more fun working on personal pieces or something. The reality is you usually never have that kind of time or that option a lot of times, because they'll task you with other tasks, which are more senior. But you'll still be making more money. But it's just interesting to see how people have this sort of illusion of it's very common when people first hit more senior ranks and become more managerial. They're like, oh, it's going to be great, and it's more cash, but more money doesn't make you happier. I mean, it can help, but there's a certain point too where it can just be, the responsibilities for earning what they are offering you. It balances out, but sometimes what I mean by balancing out is it can be more stress for more pay, and that's why. But it's still like, it's higher level grunt work. You know what I mean? And so, certain people will get much cushier jobs in the future, of certain industries. But I think you've almost got to be clever, man, if you really want, more money for less effort, not to be lazy, but to pour into your passions or your other interests. You've got to start looking outside of making art for somebody for like a very low rate. Or, I mean, by very low, again, I'm saying relatively. Like, if you're making under 100, you're still doing well if it's just below 100 or so. But of course, that's very good pay, but in general for most people. But if you're really looking to get to the next level with yourself and your career, your finances, you've got to start working less for, like being under so many people and working for someone else and just doing what they're telling you to do, and more so being somebody who's more in charge, but also somebody who can in many ways make their own schedule yet still make good money. That's really where you're starting to find that sweeter middle ground, where you get more freedom and yet a better rate than what you were doing when you had less freedom, less time to yourself or to do what you wanted, and yet we're struggling just to pay the bills, just to make ends meet. Which is very common. That's where the majority of artists, I think, are in that sphere of, from junior, mid to senior. There's a whole dynamic, and because our industry is always doing this, whether you're at a gig or not, if you're not in a staff position for a long period of time, you're doing this a lot, and it sucks. It's not fun. Actors know that very well, where you're just going to be just one gig to the next, and if you're not, again, like a super talent, or somebody who's is always getting hired for like national commercials or something, you know what I mean, where it's like really good pay consistently if you're doing one national commercial after another. Which I don't know anyone who like specializes in. I'm sure there are people out there, but I don't know anyone who specializes in like I got hired for this Tide commercial, then I got hired for this Burger King commercial, then I got hired for, like, that doesn't usually happen. It's like they go to a bunch of auditions, they'll nail one commercial, and then they'll go, maybe they'll get another commercial soon thereafter, but a lot of times there might be another, but they got to be auditioning like crazy too, you know what I mean? So anyway, it's yeah, so when you talk about jobs, I'm sorry, I'm going down this rabbit hole of just jobs and finance and business and in the entertainment industry. I think, you know, sorry to wrap it up. I just think people have to be, you should be wise. You should be wise in thinking, think 20 steps ahead. Don't look at just like, what do I need right now? Or I can't wait for this job, or even dreaming about any company being your dream job. I think you really almost have to make your dream job. You have to pursue, really figure out how can you make the most amount of cash that you're the amount of money you need to make by to be go to get by happily, but more so to have the time you want to pour into what you really love and what you want to do, and figure out how to monetize that time where you're basically being paid either to learn and grow so that your skills are growing and you're stretching yourself in the direction of what your dreams are, while also being paid to do that growth. That's what I did earlier on in my career, and I was lucky to have the right opportunities present themselves. And excuse me, the other side of it was, you know, using those skills to springboard to tangential industries or other levels, you know, and also using your money wisely. You know, invest in different aspects of yourself, in different aspects of life, not just in your equipment and your hardware, because that's helping you do better faster. If you have if you're getting a better computer, getting better gear, that really helps you move quicker and allows you to work at the speed that you can physically and mentally work at. Because I had for a long time a couple, you know, old MacBook Pros that were just, you know, inhibiting my ability to work faster because they were just slower machines. So I was just pushing them to the max all the time, but it was like just getting by, you know. But it was frustrating. It would crash sometimes because you're just pushing the RAM too far, you know, or whatever. And I've worked with some rough machines, not like low quality, but just older, so they would still just be underpowered by comparison to, especially the one I'm working with now. It's bananas. But also take account for younger artists too, or for those just still, you know, moving forward in the industry. Take account of what you have and how far you've come, because we're always that boiling frog in the pot, you know, where we're acclimating to the temperature that's always rising and changing, and we're often, I think, taking for granted where we are and how far we've come and how hard we've worked. And perhaps, I mean, it's always better to stay humble, but, you know, don't put yourself down either. It's hard. I think it's challenging for human beings in general to have an accurate view of themselves, without getting either egotistical and narcissistic if they have a positive view of themselves, and or not becoming kind of depressed or kind of down on themselves if they have a more humble and or unaware, you know, perspective on themselves. But I feel like it's always safer and more respected to be kind and humble, and not, never to get a big head, you know, because no one likes that, honestly. No one with the brain really finds that attractive. I think maybe younger people might find, and they conflate, you know, confidence with, you know, and bravado with arrogance, and they think that someone who's cocky and arrogant, you know, is confident. Usually, it's probably the opposite. And a lot of times, people who are overcompensating, kind of being dicks, are often pretty insecure, and that's why they're acting out or doing what they do or saying what they say. But anyway, but yeah, I think there's something to be said for the you know, the classic phrase, work harder. I mean, work smarter, not harder. But yeah, there's certain things too that you just have to work hard at. You know, certain things in life, certain aspects of work, can't be shortcutted by intelligence. You know, you might be, you know, you might be doing things so much more cleverly than someone else, but there's still a certain amount of leg work, just, you know, physical, get your hands dirty kind of, or just, you know, active, that can't be shortcut by clever software cheats, so to speak. You know, but yeah, I think it is important though to be clever. You know, that's another thing. Like, look up shortcuts. Like when I talk about ZWrap a lot, that's such a great tool to take a scan or just a messy base mesh, or I mean a messy, really nice mesh, that's been dynameshed or scanned in or whatever, and then transpose it to a really beautiful, clean, nice topology with all the edge loops in the right place kind of workflow. It just saves so much time. So you don't have to restart with a base mesh that you have to retopo again and again. You just always have this one human base mesh you'll go, or one or two that you are go-tos for male or female, or young or old, or all that kind of stuff. So there's that in that sense. I think working smarter, even just creating your own base mesh if you want, that then you could even create morph targets and layers, so that you could create like the adult version and the child version, of either gender, or same thing with an animal. You could create like a quadruped, generic like dog or cat, and then with layers, change the more, the whole physical morphology, so that they go from a dog to a cat, or from, like they did in Lion King. I forget the name of the artist, Damien, I think. Great crew on Lion King. I wish I would have got to meet all of them, because I was working on it, but I was here, and majority were like elsewhere, like UK. Pardon me. But they were very smart and very wise and time saving by creating one lion, I believe, for all the lions, essentially. So they just did morph targets. They just did layers to change. They could actually just morph like baby Simba to adult Simba to Nala to like, Mufasa to Scar, because it was all that you didn't need, different topology really for any of that. Because then none of them are like missing a limb or something, or have an extra one or an extra eye or anything. So there's all the geo is the same. They all are intact. So they just change size and shape, and that's a super smart and time-saving way to design characters of any kind. And so I think that's working smarter, not harder. But in that effect, you should be working hard so that each unique character looks unique and has the proper attributes with all the little detail they need. But you're still saving yourself a lot of time then, from having to start from scratch again and then redo all the certain details that might be so much easier to have certain details already in place, and then just modifying them slightly or making them different, asymmetrical, little things like that. It's clever. It's just very smart. So look at everything that way. I think look at it's like I said, like the three steps I always talk about is like, be excellent at what you do. That's the barrier to entry. Be exceptionally good with people if you can. Be likable. Be kind. Be able to have a conversation other than just about art or about whatever you're interested in, and be human, basically. Be mature, and thirdly, of course, luck. Right? Be lucky, but we make our own luck. I think a lot of it is, luck favors the prepared. So be prepared, and by preparation, I mean life in preparation and life in general. Whether it's saving that money for a rainy day, that basic adage, to thinking ahead, like what if I get a gig where I need a really great human base mesh, right? Well, prepare for that day, because it's most likely coming. If you work in this industry and you do a good job, people are going to ask you to make some other humans, or going to ask you to make some other quadruped if you're known for creatures, or monster or whatever. So think ahead and save yourself some time and pain, perhaps, or maybe even help yourself make more money by being able to churn out different things faster, and it'll look like you're just pumping them out. Of course, that's the other thing. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Someone says you've got 2 weeks to do this. Don't make it in one day. Even if you could do it in one day, don't hand it to them in one day, because then you're setting a precedent for yourself, and or you might be like losing money too. So be wise, right? Like, and never anyway be dishonest, but be wise in how you spend your time and how you invest it, right? Because you can shoot yourself in the foot if you're a little too eager to please, right? Because again, these companies are companies. They're typically don't care about the individual so much, just like society, right? You think that they care about the individual, but they don't. It's all about a bigger push, a bigger picture, bigger narrative, and you can just often be just a pawn that they don't really give two poops about, and that can be the difference between just being wise in how you're making your choices and coming out on top overall in the end, or shooting yourself in the foot and then forgetting about you because you just did something so quick or so fast or so conveniently, and or then they just want to abuse you like that way. Then they're just going to expect that from you all the time and expect to only pay you like for one day, or 2 days or whatever. And you're just, so it's all about finding that right middle ground, finding that right moderation of balance of work, speed, intelligence, hard work, nose to the grindstone, and knowing what battles to really pick, not burning bridges whenever possible. Unless you got the FU money. even then, there's certain things money can't buy. And you can't buy yourself back into good graces with most people unless maybe you're a billionaire. So even then, certain things, certain cuts go too deep that nothing will change it. So, you know, anyway, so this all just food for thought. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but just kind of got off on a major tangent there. But hopefully that's useful to somebody out there, because that's just some of the basic lessons I've learned, which I feel are basic, but I know at the same time I'm always told, like, don't assume, Daniel, that everybody thinks the way you do, or has been told the same things that you have, which I know. I mean, we all have different life experiences, and we all gain and glean different things from many different people. So, so I just say all this to help whoever's out there. Hopefully, it improves your chances and your perspective a little bit. Maybe enhances ideas and thoughts you've already had kind of rattling around back there, but maybe it brings it to the forefront with a little bit more clarity, about how to approach work in this industry from a more savvy business side of things, a little bit more experienced area, perhaps. But yeah, so anyway, was that helpful? I don't know. Should I shut up? Great dog. Sorry, I'm gonna go back and just catch up the chat quick. I know this is not the most exciting thing right now, hands, I know, but it's they're hard. Let me just read the chat quick just to catch up. There's probably questions I missed. Thanks, Alex. Started in Wolf yesterday. Didn't know whether I'll finish it. Try to finish it. Comics Legend, you're welcome. Search for online remote work as a beginner. You know what I mean? A year in working 3D. Oof. A year? I mean, it depends what your work looks like. A year can be you can make a lot of headroom in 1 year, or you can not look that great in 1 year. It really depends. No, it's never too early to search for work, Usaris. I can't. I mean, to say where exactly. I know you can sign up for job listings and job notifications from ArtStation. Um, I mean, as a beginner, this is the sad thing, is like, I knew as a beginner, or somebody who, even as a beginner, I made sure to do work that looked senior as much as I could. So I would probably not do as much necessarily, like as many just random things. I wouldn't throw them out there. I do a lot of work on my own, but I wouldn't post things that weren't finished usually. Or if I would only post the works in progress kind of after they were done. So kind of planning ahead. So that, like every day you release a new image of your progress, so I do that. So then there would be this crescendo to the finished piece that I know I could already have, it's already in the bank, and it's just delving out image after image for like a week or something, or 3 days even, or whatever, to kind of create momentum and ramp people up and get people interested in what you were doing. But yeah, but then I would just, a few places I applied when I was encouraged by friends to say, like, no, your work's good enough, like you should apply here, like just apply, just apply, just apply. I was like, all right, fine. And I did it thinking that I would be in a lot of competition, and in the end I wound up getting a lot of the jobs that I applied for when I was younger, just starting out, mostly because my work, again, I was doing what I told you guys to do. Like, I was practicing what I preached. Like, I was making work that I thought compared to senior level work, or at least, mid-level work, that I felt, and some of it's still my portfolio actually today on my site. And I thought, all right, well, it's a good enough presentation where people who expect you to be, mid-level, you don't tell them like, I've never had any other job. You know what I mean? Like, you do your best you can to only answer the questions you're asked. You know what I mean? Don't volunteer information. Again, don't shoot yourself in the foot, because so many people want to be. I mean, there's, never lie, because the lies will find you out. But you don't always have to, you can omit things that you don't need to answer, or that have not been asked of you, of course, or that they don't need to know, as far as just how much experience you've had prior to this. Well, if that's, that can often be a very direct question, and you have to answer that correctly, honestly. But again, your work will speak for itself largely. So I would just say, don't be afraid to apply for anywhere if you only have a year of experience. If your work is great, your work is great. If you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing, and just apply wherever you want. Then, of course, it's great to find places where, you know, they larger studios will often be more willing in a lot of ways to take on younger artists, and you'll make less in the beginning, of course, but that's, you got to start, everyone has to start somewhere. Make less than a senior person, but you're still going to get your foot in the door. You're going to get real work. You're going to be working on real productions of some type. That's a great place to start. But you know, if they're going to keep you there, if they're going to keep extending you, you know, don't feel like you're never going to get hired anywhere else. Because I know people who fall into that trap too, where they've gotten, you know, offered even a staff job, and they think, oh my god, a staff job, security, job security. Well, it's never really that secure, first of all. Granted, during these times it might be more crucial to find something that's stable, I get that, but still, you've got to be, you know, got to be brave, man. You got to be bold. Stay for a company for at least a year if they let you. Sometimes they'll just let people go, not because you did anything wrong, but just because budgets are cut, or, you know, projects are ended, they've completed, or they get, you know, put on hold or something, so then you get let go. So, but if you make it for a year, that's a good, nice chunk of time that shows that you were able to like stay there and work well with everybody for at least a year. But then, you know, if they're not going to give you a significant raise, if they're not appreciating your work and showing you that they acknowledge that you're working hard and you're growing, or if you're not growing, that's the other thing. You don't just want to work at a job forever, because that's yesterday's, you know, that's like old school. That's, we don't really live in a time where most people will have the same job at the same company for forever, like for their whole life. Um, my point is, if you get hired somewhere as staff, or it's just whatever, as a freelancer, but they're keeping you on almost like an employee, uh, if they're not going to raise your rate after a year, and it means significantly, you can just bounce, I would say, honestly. But don't, again, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't announce to the world you're looking for another job. Just go and find yourself another gig. Once you've locked that new gig down, you know, or you're close to that, you think you've got it, give your 2 weeks notice at this other place. Make sure that the place you're going to go work at knows, you know, that you have to give 2 weeks notice. Say, can I start in 2 weeks? They say, great, cool. And then go, right? Once you've got your hand on the other bar, let go of the one before. So you know, look out for yourself. But my point is, going to that next company or that next gig, make sure they're paying you at least or more than what you were making at the previous gig. Of course, you know, up your game, up yourself. But in doing so, make sure your portfolio is reflecting that. You know, you've got to be leveling up, but also improving your skill set and learning something new. You know, right now it should be like, learn ZBrush, learn Substance Painter, learn Maya, and definitely learn Unreal. Like, start learning Unreal. You know, it's not as hard as you think, and if you just sit down and start putting in the time, within a few days, you can feel pretty good about it. And by the end of a week, if you're just constantly learning general flow of bringing in models and learning how to adjust lighting, bring in different plugins, you can make a piece look great in a short amount of time, relatively speaking, and just grow from there. You know, I think that's really valuable software to learn. So anyway, excuse me. Just gonna catch up on chat a little bit more, and then I'll get back to the sculpt. Um, hate the secretive nature of the business side. I know, I do too. I'm so sick of it, honestly. Things need to change. Comics Legend. Um, and I hate that certain employers don't want you to show things after it's out. Like, we can't let any of you say that you worked on anything for us ever. Like, that's such BS. That should be illegal, honestly, because especially if they're not hiring you, an NDA shouldn't gag you from being able to speak about the work you did for whatever project after it's publicly out. Like, it's done, it's out. You know, I've had some people do that for, you know, different projects, and I just think that's ridiculous, because how are we supposed to, you know, you have to have a private part of your site then, or something, a private link, because you have to be able to show the work you've done and tell other employers, especially if you're not a full-time employee, of course, of anybody, you've just worked on a gig and you're done. You have to be able to show your work. You have to be able to talk about it. Not, of course, like any, of course, not like any private information or proprietary information or software. Of course, nothing that would be legally you could be sued over. You know what I mean? Like, nothing that you shouldn't be saying to anybody, that you might have learned any trade secrets or something. Of course, not that. But as far as like showing the work you made, the art that you made for a project after it's released, after it's all publicly available, like that's the basic, like that's how we all feed ourselves. So to have a clause or some sort of outline in an NDA or in any kind of contract that says you're not allowed to ever admit or say you've done work for this company, and I've seen that a bunch of times. That's such BS, and that's so like, it's so one-sided. It's like saying we're paying you a finite amount of money to work on this project for a short amount of time that we'll keep getting, but we got a huge amount of money for, uh, as a company, and you can't ever say that you worked for us or that you worked on that piece. How is that fair? That's like you're never allowed to show something that you spent maybe weeks or months on. You worked incredibly hard, it looks incredibly great. It has millions of eyes on it, and you're not allowed to say you worked on it. Like what? Like that's idiotic. So anyway, I can't say it enough. It's whoever, any company, anyone who is ever involved in a company, if they're ever watching this, like stop that shit. That's ridiculous, and it's like hurting. It's just hurting yourself, making yourself look bad, and it's hurting people who actually just need to make a living, and they have to show their work to do it. So it's pretty fundamental, not a hard concept to grasp. Um, so what am I sculpting? Oh, this Cupid. Back to Cupid. Uh, these guys. These people. Sorry for those who were wondering. Just focusing on the hands right now. Standards are important. That's why we have unions. Standard prices are important. Yes, they are. And that's why we don't have. So we need a union, I think, or something like a union for 3D for visual effects, because there is none. Nobody's helping us like that at all. Which is another reason why it's like outrageous that companies would say you can't show your work to anybody even after the work project is done and out. Like, ugh, enraging. So ridiculous. Remember meeting me at the first ZBrush Summit with a Raptor and iPad. Yeah, thanks, man. I have a Mac laptop. Wise words. Thanks, man. Excellent. Thank you. Worked on Lion King. Yes, I did. But it was all the concept behind the scenes work. And I was working on a piece that I started back here at home when I was working on the film. I was redesigning the whole Mufasa comes to Simba in the cloud scene. It was awesome. What I designed was awesome. What came out in the movie has nothing to do with what I worked on, unfortunately, because I didn't have time to implement. There was no time to implement it. But I got a really nice message from the director, Jon Favreau, who just said they wish they would have hired me like 3 months earlier. So I was like, because he liked what I produced, and a lot of other people who were involved in the production liked what I made. The whole concept, the whole scene, I redid the whole scene with storyboards, like photoreal kind of storyboards. Rough, but like they look good, and really beautiful light, and just I'll describe the scene to you guys later. But yeah, so what I came up with, I was really excited about and thought it would be spectacular, but they just didn't have the time because, for that kind of work, clouds, fog, volumetric particles, you always use Houdini or something like Houdini to simulate that. And they needed me to create Mufasa to be the container, like the shape of Mufasa is what the clouds would morph into to form him. I'll just tell the story now quick. So like basically I designed the scene to make sense with the original statement that Mufasa tells Simba, which they did keep in the remake too, which is, he tells him to look at the stars and that the stars are where the dead kings of the past are. But in the original animation, you never have any involvement really with the stars. They almost try to make it look kind of like it forms the outline or the negative space surrounding a constellation, but they weren't really showing you Leo, and it's not enough to really show the shape of Mufasa the way they did. So they just had clouds form Mufasa. So I thought, since they're still doing clouds, I was like, why not just do a few? And it really wouldn't take, I don't think, that much extra effort for just to add this extra chunk of visuals, which was after Simba looks up from the pool of water and sees his father's reflection, hears his name being called. He looks to the sky, and so I designed a cloud line far across this huge lake, and it was like a storm cloud line that you could see the above it, right? So you were pretty level. It was pretty low to the ground, far off, and you could see the incredible, beautiful night sky still with like nebulas, and just all the stars, and then I had as his name was being called out louder, you heard like almost like a roaring kind of rumble of the storm getting louder, like thunder was building, and you saw this one star that Simba would focus on, and as he'd hear his name, the bright light was getting brighter and brighter until you realize that essentially it looks like a shooting star that's entering our atmosphere, like coming toward the viewer, toward Simba, arcing from the heavens down to Earth. But really, of course, it's Mufasa's soul. It's a beautiful white light that kind of rockets in, and as it comes down and enters across the lake into the storm that he sees across the lake, the clouds kind of almost act like magnetic to the soul, and kind of pull up as the light enters, and then there's this almost like beautiful kind of electrical gaseous kind of gentle boom of just the aura of the soul kind of using the clouds to take a form, to manifest itself as Mufasa. And as it did, it had the electricity kind of passing, the lightning kind of passing through and raining down, and then pulsing like a helicopter hovering over water. The lake then had all these beautiful white ripples kind of just flowing outward, and this like breathing rapidly, almost like a heartbeat kind of echoing toward Simba and hitting the camera with some water splatter, and just really, beautiful like lights and chromatic aberrations, and just and chroma flares, and just gorgeous. Just really was meant to be just this beautiful, breathtaking, like godlike manifestation kind of moment. And so really kind of taking what they did in the animation and trying to like glorify it, like level it up. And once he has a final form, really I made this whole appearance of Mufasa look like a realistic take on what they did in the animation, where Mufasa just had this light from like his heart and the center from the head and the heart kind of illuminating from within, almost like a sunset inside the clouds kind of. So it really created this beautiful, warm, like magic hour glow, but to the storm that he was enveloped by kind of. And then the storm, as he's talking, did the same kind of beautiful swirling clouds, like arcing behind him, almost like a halo, right? And his mane was flowing into that a bit. And it just was just, it was gonna, I really wanted people to cry. Like I really wanted people just to have their breath taken away and just be in awe. And I also researched real meteorology, so real storms, so that I learned about the Anvil cloud storm system, so that there was a point where the clouds kind of reach a plateau. And so this was devised for it to have a real like meteorological scientific visualization of how he would wash away, how he'd flow away from the scene, how he'd leave, how he'd exit the scene. So I had his mane flow upward as he's finishing his conversation with Simba, and it would start to lift his whole figure up in a really elegant, gentle way. As the storm clouds reached their highest peak of the atmosphere, it would, just as because the sun just went down like in this time frame, just before this scene, in my revision of that scene. So because in the movie it's still like daytime, which is so weird. But in this scene, the sun had just set. So as the clouds arc to above the curvature of the earth, you get that line of sight again, and they start to turn orange. So you have this beautiful, again, orange to blue, like that magic hour, that complementary orange, purple, blue kind of coloration as it just washes away and the storm dissipates and moves on. So there was a lot of thought that went into this, and a lot of like grounded science, but again, exemplifying and glorifying all these moments, and the visual science behind it, to really just epitomize that scene and just make people really just jaw hit the floor. And I think that's why, I mean, I did my best to represent that in like whatever it was, like 8 frames or 10 like keyframes. And so I did a really elaborate 3D model that we finished up in about like a week and a half or 2 weeks, so like 10 days. And yeah, so then I did a version of it here at home for myself, and I was streaming it for a while, but it just was taking forever, and it was just kind of like, it was just slow. I just felt like I was stuck in the mud just editing clouds. So I think I've gotten better at sculpting clouds, so these kind of are representative of some of that. But anyway, so I'm eventually going to finish sculpting it here some point this year, and 3D print it out and give it to my art director, Mishi McKeag, who's a good friend of mine, and hopefully somehow find somebody who knows Mr. Favreau and get one to John, so that he can have a little like desk piece as a little commemorative thing. So it's Mufasa kind of fully formed in the clouds with a beautiful ring of clouds around him, and below him are like god rays coming down from the clouds that he's laying on. So it was almost like a lion like laying down, because I wanted it to be also Mufasa's appearance in the clouds. I wanted it to be a really beautiful mirroring of when he was laying next to Simba, his son, and looking down at his son, explaining to him this whole reality. And so it's this beautiful echoing of them. He's an adult, and now Mufasa's moved to the afterlife, and yet there's still this beautiful mirroring of when he was a child, and Mufasa laying next to his son. Now he's laying in the clouds still. So like there's that intimacy of that. Even though it's this grander scale, there's still that deep intimacy with his son. And so he's laying down the clouds in the same manner. And the whole base is just a giant, like clear, it would just be a giant clear chunk of resin that it's diagonally pointed downwards. So anyway, so that's the whole story behind my work on Lion King. So now it's just going to be a 3D printed piece that I'm going to give to my art director and my friend, and to Mr. Favreau. So that's the story. I was really bummed that it wasn't able to be realized in the film, because I just owned that scene. I just jumped on it, and I mean, that's, again, it would have just been a small expression of how I look at the world and how I visualize things and how I really enjoy storytelling. That's why I want to be a director. That's why I'm working toward that now with my own shorts. I believe that films should be iconic, breathtaking, powerful, deeply emotional, and intelligent in how they communicate their stories, not just, you know, duct taped crap, which is what so many films feel like in the end. I mean, they look, so many films, I'm not saying this about Lion King, I just mean films in general. There's so many films that are created that get so much money, so much funding. Somehow people get so convinced by hacks to make and fund trash. And it's just always mind blowing to me just how much garbage gets millions of dollars put behind it. And it's so much less ambitious than half of the stuff that I ever think about. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna do, you gotta do a job, you gotta do it right, you gotta do it yourself. Like, it's always what it's like. So it's, again, show don't tell, right? I can verbalize all this stuff, but it's always more valuable 1,000 more times to show you work. And so maybe I'll open up Mufasa here quickly so you guys can see what I was working on. For those of you who haven't seen earlier streams. But yeah, so anyway, that's just yeah, that's my Lion King involvement on the feature film that no one ever saw my work on, really, which is a bummer. Um, Anyway, okay, so regarding the projection of confidence by incompetent people, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot about that. Yep. Cognitive bias, they that people with low ability at a task overstate their ability. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hello from Brazil. Hello, Luis. Opposite is also true. The better you are, the more you underestimate yourself. That's true too, yeah. Vert wise, a very wise. Thank you. Yep, total helpful and nice to hear. Thank you, my pleasure. Very helpful. Welcome, thank you. Hello, hello, Alex Jackson. Very cool story. Thank you, Comics Legend. Should watch The Lion King once more now that you've explained this shot. You did. Oh, thanks, man. But again, my shot's not in the movie. Unfortunately, it's not at all. It's not at all in the film. My work did not really have any impact on the final film. Not that I'm aware of. My name is not in the credits, nor is my art director, because that was our scene and it never made it into the film. So it's a bummer. It's a real bummer. But such is life. Just gotta take it on the chin and keep going. Roll with the punches, man. I mean, what's the alternative? To be upset about it, be bitter, like, doesn't do any good. I mean, it was still a great and positive and fun experience, man. It was an honor and a pleasure to be a part of it. It's just because I love that story so much. I love the first movie. Uh, it came out, what, 94, like a year after Jurassic Park, and for me, like the 90s to 2000s, man, 82 to 2000s. That was my childhood. I was born in 82. So and I remember a lot of films and a lot of stuff I saw probably way too early. I remember, like, my dad exposed me to Aliens and Terminator 2, like, probably way too early for me, but I loved movies since I was a kid. I mean, I loved quality movies because my dad was the one who really was curating these great films for me as a younger person. So I would always yeah, I would always just be exposed to really great art, and it was not just films, it was books, and it was even video games. So he really turned my sister and I into these, like, really not snobs at all, but just we were always just given such great work to appreciate, such great music, great films. We were forced to take classical instruments as children. That really helped me and my sister grow in appreciation for classical music. And they were really strict on me for a while. They didn't want me listening to, like, explicit lyrics or, like, really hard rock or anything. So I was kind of forced, but I'm so grateful I was, into, like, all right, well, what can I enjoy that they were not going to, like, call me out on or get upset about? So I just poured more into films, and I just loved film soundtracks. I fell in love because I fell in love with classical music, or at least I enjoyed it. I appreciated it somewhat. I found so much more pleasure and enjoyment as a younger age in film soundtracks. So I would just buy film soundtracks like crazy, like the ones I enjoyed. A lot of John Williams, a lot of Jerry Goldsmith, a lot of James Newton Howard. Yeah, so just I became like a soundtrack junkie. But it was an odd like childhood because a lot of kids just they would just listen to the radio. They didn't know who a lot of these composers were. Um, I would always kind of find it funny when I was younger. I'd be taken aback, like, you don't know who John Williams is? Like, what? And even now, I'm still kind of shocked when adults tell me, like, who's John Williams? Like, are you serious? There's two John Williamses. There's a great guitarist, an amazing classical guitarist, and the composer that's our like living legend Mozart of our time. But a lot of people just it's not their world. It's not their taste, or it's just not of that much interest to them. And that's fair. It's fine. Everyone has their own thing. I'm just always like surprised. I'm always surprised when it's people that I know are cultured and well read, and yet maybe they're so well cultured, or they're so much in one direction that they almost look down their nose at films and entertainment. Maybe I don't know. Um, or it just could just not be their thing. Of course, that's so easily possible too. But yeah, for me, quality storytelling, quality artwork, quality films were just such a huge part of my childhood and my imagination as a child, and inspiring me, my inspiration, right? Like knew about Phil Tippett at a very young age. I knew his work from Star Wars after I learned his name, but it wasn't until after I saw his work for dinosaur work, which before Jurassic Park, he made these incredible stop motion um, short featurettes or vignettes for this original special from I think CBS television, and it had Christopher Reeve, the late Christopher Reeve, who's my original Superman. Um, he was hosting the whole show, and it's just called Dinosaur with an exclamation point, and all these incredible stop motion dinosaurs, like these scenes that looked pretty. I mean, they were real puppets, of course. They were like photo real, but the sculptural work that Phil Tippett did for a T-Rex and a Monoclonius and Deinonychus, a pair of Deinonychuses, Struthiomimus, was it Edmontosaurus, I think? Um, Hadrosaurus. And what else? Um, Apatosauruses were in there. I mean, he did all these incredible dinosaurs. And they looked fantastic. I mean, they looked really real especially for stop motion. I mean, if you would have just, I mean, it's CG. It's real light. It's real. He made like small scale, large like bigatures, I guess. So much of that was done in his garage with him and his wife, and they just did so much together. And it was like the work still looks great today. So look up Prehistoric Beast. That's his original short that he did that then got him the full gig for Dinosaur. If you look up Dinosaur exclamation point, like the Dinosaur cut on YouTube, you can see just all that stop motion work he did for that. I think it's still on there. But he also released Prehistoric Beast on VHX, which is like an app you can buy movies on and stream them. Really affordable. And I got that from him on there. And I got to meet Phil a bunch of times. Like, we've spoken a bunch of times. I'm still friends with his former assistant. We're all on good terms. Like, I have so much respect and admiration and love for Phil and his work that have just poured so much joy and meaning into my life as a child. And I still deeply appreciate it and respect it as an adult because it was quality work. It still holds up great today. By anyone's standards, if someone were to create stop motion of that caliber today, it would still be hailed just as much, if not maybe more in some ways. But it's hard to say that reality because that work is what influenced and it gave him the job that he had in Jurassic Park, which was like to essentially be the art director, the animation director for all the dinosaur movement that we see in the first Jurassic Park. And he was also, of course, in The Lost World. And I don't know if he had any involvement on JP3 or not. But anyway, I think his impact on my life as a child just can't be overstated. How much positivity it brought to me. And but yeah, so anyway, I forgot how I got on that tangent. But oh yeah, so film inspirations. Yeah, Phil's just a really spectacular artist and just a living legend. And I know they would say like never meet your heroes, don't meet your heroes, and it's like, well, obviously like no human beings agree on everything. There's just so much that he does and has done that I appreciate. That you know it's all been such a positive experience meeting him and getting to share time and meals with him and having an open invitation to Tippett Studios was just, it's just been great. It's just, I mean, I'm so grateful. So yeah. Uh, Keep your guard up. Don't take it on the chin. You'll pass out if you do. Funny. Uh, Funny analogy. I love classical music. I mean, you got to take it on the chin when you can avoid it. That's what I'm saying. You just gotta. Sometimes you can't avoid the hits, right? You can't control if your work doesn't make it into a film. What else are you gonna do? Freak out? Keep your love classical music. It's the real meaning behind music. Yeah, absolutely. Arrange and compose sounds. Yeah, classical composers could paint scenes with musical notes. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Classical music is really the foundation of all the music we listen to today. It really is. It's laid the groundwork, the ground rules, so to speak. It's really helped devise the foundation of music. So people who don't appreciate classical music, I think, don't really understand the impact and its importance. And there's a certain level of just mental conditioning, just like working out is good for your body. They've proven countless times like how beneficial classical music is, not just to listen to, but to learn how to perform, to learn how to play, to learn the musical structure, the technical structure of how music is written, how it's read, ingested, mentally performed, simulated, and then presented to the world. There's such a healthy it's such a healthy mental exercise to learn classical music, that I would always, if I had children, I would definitely have them learn some instruments, even though I know that it must be painful for my folks to have listened to my sister and I struggle to play the violin correctly. Because, man, a violin played wrong, ugh, it's not nearly, I mean, a piano played incorrectly is not nearly as bad as a violin that's always being like flat and sharp, and you're slurring up to all the right notes, like, ugh. That's that can be, it's funny what such a beautiful instrument can also be so close to nails on a chalkboard if played incorrectly, like bad. um but that being said, maybe I wouldn't have my kids do violin if I ever had children, but piano for sure. Piano's such a great foundational instrument too. I mean, you're hitting the wrong notes, but they still sound clean and clear, you know what I mean? It's not like a violin. um But yeah, has anybody in the chat, have you guys ever taken musical instruments? Anybody ever studied that? I did piano, violin, and classical guitar. I love the piano and guitar the most. I love the sound of the violin. I had a horrible teacher in the beginning, and then he became a nicer person afterwards. But excuse me, I think that really soured a lot of my experiences learning to play the violin, because he made it such a negative experience for me when I was younger. So that being said, I think it made it hard to I'm subdividing here just to get more resolution for that thumb. I think it just made it harder to really look positively upon my experiences learning violin from him. And by that point too, I was just not as enthusiastic about it as I was about piano, and more so when it came to guitar. So, um, is my sister also an artist? Yeah, in some ways, yeah, she can draw decently, very well, in her own style. She definitely has her own style for sure. But yeah, she can draw very well. But more than an artist, she's like, we're all kind of multi-tiered in our interests and our abilities. So my sister is now a physician's assistant. So I left medicine, working in the ER and studying the MCATs. That's where I ended my medical career, kind of, and did geriatric care after that for a couple years before I really left medicine altogether. Um, but I was pursuing medicine seriously for a while, through my junior year of university, and then did medical care for elderly folk after that for a while before I left. My sister is the opposite. During those years when I was doing that, she was becoming a music professor, and she was already a music teacher for a long time. So she taught classical piano, violin, viola, and uh, and she's exceeded in all those instruments. And she also plays the harp. But she eventually left most of that work. She was in orchestras. She was always like first chair, just phenomenal. She was nation's best at 18. Like, she was national competition, the entire country at 18 years old in her category. She was the best. So That's pretty awesome. Uh, but aside from that, so she became a piano teacher for, and that's what she did for a long time. But then from there, she became a professor, music professor, in Pennsylvania. And then after that, she's now still she's resigned from that and is now a physician's assistant and still does teaching piano on the side. So via Zoom now, of course. So yeah, so she's a trooper. She's a badass as far as you know, academics was never hard for her. Like for me, it was certain things were always challenging in academics, which is ironic because I was a science biology major, but I hated math. I could function through it, but man, I hated algebra. I hated algebra so much. um, but I love logic, and I really didn't like chemistry that much either because it's more kind of leaning into that math area too, of course. But I love biology. I mean, I loved my major, but I really disliked math, and I've always been intellectually curious about the fundamentals of why and how for everything, which is the basic question science always asks and seeks to answer. So chemistry was interesting to me. It's fascinating, but the actual work of sitting there and learning just how to properly, um, you know, and I'm not even sure what the word is. I guess like chemically, describe chains and how they all connect, and that just in the math involved in that just always just grated on me. I always just found it a struggle, a pain to really enjoy. Um, yeah. So, but I still find it all fascinating. I love physics is phenomenal. Physics is cool. But yeah. So anyway, we traded places kind of. So I left the sciences as a primary pursuit in my career to go into the arts, visual arts, and my sister left the musical arts primarily to become a medical professional. So we kind of traded places a little bit, which is crazy because I never expected her to go into medicine really, but she's been doing a fine job of it, just like I expected she would. Um, Always concerned a little bit for her during this time, but you know, less so as we've gotten to understand how this virus works and who it's most a danger to. Um, but yeah, interesting, interesting times. So I'm just referencing my own hand here. Sorry, I know we're just going all over the place topic wise, but yeah, if anyone has any other on topic questions as far as sculpting goes, please feel free to always ask. There's no reason not to. So this just becomes story time with Daniel, I guess, a little bit. I'm just moving things around here with the move brush and using that alpha for the knuckles to make them quickly, and then I'll smooth them out because they get a little too like crisp, a little too detailed. What are we at? Are we at? Okay, we're at 323. So I gotta 327. I gotta switch over to Neo just because we're a little past the hour mark on these guys. But moving along on the hands. Um, for anyone who wasn't here last week or for a couple weeks, I've been doing two pieces on stream here, which have been Cupid and Psyche here, as well as a Keanu Reeves likeness as Neo from The Matrix, because I'm a huge fan of both the man and the myth. I love the first Matrix film, as you can tell from the poster behind me. Uh, Comics legend learned a bit of piano and guitar, but never stuck. Dad, brother, and nephew had guitar come naturally to them. They play very well. Guitar and piano were very challenging for me. I hear you. Taught myself piano and guitar, played at church. Oh, very cool. Yeah, my sister played in church for years. Yeah. My mom sang in church a lot too. We have a very musical. My dad's like the math engineer, so we have a very like art and science in the household. Was always I guess around me. I just never really you know thought about it when I was younger, but it doesn't surprise me. I guess it shouldn't be surprising that those are my interests and somewhat my sister's too. Hola from Barcelona, Pedro. ¿Cómo estás? Recently got into 3D past 6 months, and I'm studying. This is Ruben Cohen. Taking a course in town, following dreams I never believed to be capable of making true. How to deal with it being difficult. How to deal with it being difficult. Well, Ruben, maybe can you explain what makes it difficult for you? Like, what is the most challenging aspect or aspects of learning 3D? I can see if I can help. In some way, through piano guitar, felt too mathematical. Could never get it to be second nature. I got too caught up with the theory and not the creative feeling of it. Yeah, that can be a challenge for sure. Might give it a try later because you love music. You should totally, man. I miss playing instruments. I moved here and left my guitar and of course piano violin back home in Pennsylvania. Put it all in my parents' house. Um, I moved out of the house I was in and just kind of dumped it in my old bedroom. I really should get a new guitar again though. I kind of miss playing guitar. I was learning like flamenco style too. Like I was doing that as well as classical like finger arpeggios. I really appreciate that because almost anybody, like any guy in a church or in a band, can like strum a guitar with like just the different they call it, the different chords. Like just like I always find that like I feel like that's like the cheap version of guitar. I mean, it's fun. Like rock is great and all that, but when you guys do fingerstyle, when they can do crazy arpeggios and beautiful like strums and just that's when I'm just like, that's some skill, man. If you guys know, like, there's this couple of guitarists. Um, I think they go by Rodrigo and Gabriela. Those two guys, they're guy and gal. Holy crap, dude! Those people are machines on the guitar. Look up Rodrigo and Gabriela. They are amazing. If you haven't, I'm sure you've probably heard their music because they were very popular a few years, like maybe like 10 years ago now. They really just exploded onto the scene. Their cover of their album was a crocodile eye, I believe, or an alligator eye. Very cool. But the music is just, it's like every track on that album was just incredible. Just wow. Inhuman. So inhuman, man. Uh, Math and chemistry is fun if you study and practice hard. There's more math and physics than chemistry. Yeah, I know, right? But somehow physics just appealed more to me. I don't know. But I find them all interesting for sure. Math was just never the higher end math was never my favorite. Play guitar in church too. Nice. When people see you play music, they often think it's fun, but the one playing the instrument knows it's so much pain. I mean, it can be and it can't be. It depends if you really got a song down, it can just be fun. Because if you know what you're doing with it, But yeah, I mean, there's also if you're performing in an orchestra and you hear every mistake you make, or you're like, oh, I missed that measure, or you screwed something up, like you're super critical and you're like super embarrassed, like, oh no, they're gonna hear that. And so many people are so musically, their ears aren't developed, or they're just musically uneducated, or whatever, or they're just so enraptured by everything else going on in the orchestra or the moment, they won't hear your mistake. They will never notice your mistake. But so many musicians, we all have suffered through that for sure. Or when you're a little kid and you're doing like your recitals in front of your parents and all your friends' parents or all your peers, oh, that feeling of just like when you screw up. Yeah, they tell you just keep going forward. Don't go back and try to replay that part because then you're kind of giving away that you're showing your hand, you've made a mistake. I've been there. I know. That was my childhood. Um, Laptop explodes every time I try to use Blender. It's so frustrating because learning is so difficult, but I'm poor. Ah, skinny wig, I'm sorry. I know the feeling. I've been there. Um, do whatever you can, man. I mean, girl, man, I don't know. Person. um, if you can, I mean, try to springboard, like if it's possible, if it's feasible, try to sell your laptop with some basic software installed on it. Make sure you clean it off, but keep some software that's legal and that's appealing to people on it. Excuse me. And sell your laptop with some other stuff if that can help you afford to buy a new laptop. Invest in your career and your interests and your future and your dreams. Um, yeah, do whatever you can. Got to springboard somehow. You got to leapfrog. Got to move forward somehow. But if the computer's really a hang up, I know what you mean. That was there for sure. But be persistent. Maybe try. I mean, it's almost like if you can get some commissions that involve more Photoshop but a little bit of 3D, so you don't tax your machine so much. make some money that way, perhaps. If like they're asking for a very two-dimensional image, like the end result's a render, um, and you can model whatever you can in 3D. That's like the core focal point, but then Photoshop, images onto planes or just composite it in Photoshop. Make some money that way on top of it. Like figure out a way to like feed that machine so you get some extra income, some extra cash, utilizing what you know already or what you can learn with the machine you have, and then try to use all that and sell that in one form or another to move on to something bigger and better. And then just repeat that cycle, and you'll just exponentially start growing your abilities and your hardware. But try something. I mean, figure something out, but like don't give up. Um, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Nice. Hello. Uh, Trying to think of the smartest way to make money. Lots of 2D commission and prints, or not cutting it. Yeah, it's hard. I only have so many friends. Well, you got to market yourself more than your friends. I mean, that's a super small ring, no matter what. I mean, compared to the world, you got to think global, right? Think across the oceans, from wherever you are. Use Instagram, use ArtStation, and if your work isn't, if you feel like it's not up to par with to compete with other people in your sphere in that world of 2D, up your game, practice more. If you have the time, just practice more, and just market yourself by putting yourself out there. Like show, like I said, works in progress, but try to have it finished or near finished before you start showing works in progress. Unless you know you can get it done and have a really nice piece at the end within a general short time frame. But yeah, don't give up. Being too critical of oneself is the painful part, especially if you're thinking about the math behind the music. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I think there's a lot of good things to be gleaned and gained from learning to play an instrument. I really think that there's a lot there, including failure. This is the thing people don't think about, but I think having kids exposed to failing and being publicly kind of embarrassed about what they've done, not mocked or ridiculed, of course, but I mean, like going through that kind of nerve wracking, and I say that with asterisk because I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't traumatized by it necessarily. But again, there's certain things, just like building a muscle, you got to tear that muscle, you got to have some pain to get stronger. I think certain experiences that could be a little painful or a little irritating, they really kind of they get you a thicker skin. They get you out there, they get you more confident, get you bolder. Um, Again, no pain, no gain. That's kind of a true statement. I mean, that there's some truth to that for sure. You go through some of these performance hardships and you start building up confidence in a person, man. I mean, for sure. And I was a shy person, I think, in some respects. I was a dichotomy, I guess. I was definitely, we're moving on to Neo here. I was definitely a mixture of things. As a kid, I was both kind of outgoing and shy. During different circumstances. And I remember different experiences throughout my life where I would define myself as a shy young kid, and yet, like, in some ways too bold for my own good too. Because I remember when I was very little, I'd have crushes on different girls, and not too many, but a few here and there. And I'd always be bold enough to kind of say something, but then too afraid to really, very young. I'm talking like single digit age, but those are still like those young ages still represent the person that will become the adult version of that child, and the proclivities and interests they have. And so I've learned, I've put far less focus on women in general in my life as I've gotten older, just because um my goal in life isn't to just to have a girlfriend, but or a wife, but not that I'm a poet. I would love to find the right woman, but more so I just knew that my time was better spent focusing on my career and my crafts and my love for what I want to do with my life, and guessing that, hoping that eventually along that path some lovely lady will have a parallel journey, and so then our paths will hopefully be synchronous. But yeah, I just remember being very bold as a kid, and then taking that level of trying to be fearless about speaking to somebody, and then upping that to parlaying that into the the industry I'm in now, and just not being afraid to go up and talk to somebody that other people might be too afraid to say much to, or to try to have a full conversation with. And I think that confidence has really, that boldness has really, because there's definitely times when when I was younger in this career, where I was pretty nervous to speak to certain directors or art directors or people I admired. Um, but I got past that, and part of it's just sort of saying, I want to do this, even though I'm afraid to do it. Just do it. Stop thinking about it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. And that Nike phrase. Um, and just do it, and just know what you're going to say. Don't even try to rehearse it too much. Just go with it. Just get in the flow. Get in the moment. And that really can service you well, I think, to some degree. You've got to have, but again, different aspects of my life kind of helped me get to those areas. Like, again, like the stage fright thing was one thing as a child, when you're performing at recitals and or in front of different people, even if it's like house guests. Like, I always hated this as a kid, and I still always felt bad for my sister because she got it worse. Was when we'd have house guests over, friends of the family or whatever, and you're young, and your parents are like, "Oh, go play the instrument for the people that are here." You're like, "Oh God, that's just the worst." That is like, you just, I mean, because a lot of times you feel like a performing monkey. Like, you feel like, okay, I'm gonna do what I'm told, sing and dance, like, just ugh. It felt not humiliating, but just, I never wanted to do it. Almost, pretty much never. Yeah, I would say never. I never wanted to be the one to be like, all right, I'm gonna go play something for you on the piano, and just, yeah, I did feel kind of not humiliated, but embarrassed, because I didn't think, especially because I was upstaged by my sister. Not that that was any of her intention at all. She was just extremely good at playing the piano, extremely good at sight reading, just fluently. She could just easily, quickly, early on in her musical path, she could sight read, and just flawlessly just read it, and just pour out like a machine, just amazing overall. And I was not I was not that at all. So I had to do everything from memorization, and I learned to play by ear pretty well, but still, my level of musical expertise was nowhere compared to hers. And so, but yeah, so those experiences, though, they strengthen you. But then I think, as I said, 18, 19, and 20, those years I was working in the hospital, seeing real life and death. I mean, that's, like, I would call it controlled war, is what it feels like, because the injuries you see, I mean, granted, you're not, obviously there's no harm being done to anybody intentionally, but you're helping save lives. But the injuries you're seeing, that you're dealing with, they are only comparable to what you see in warfare, really. Traumatic bodily injuries, and or just illness, just incredible illnesses at times, or moments that are just super traumatic. um the ER I worked at's a level 2 trauma, so facility, so that's like one below the absolute highest level. So you get a lot. We got like gunshot wounds, car accidents, like all kinds of stabbings. There's yeah, everything, like the worst, really, like a lot of the worst. And since they were the the highest level trauma unit in a large region, before there was, like, the Hershey Medical Center was over there, so that meant that we just got a lot of bad injuries, and that, having to understand the social graces you need to have, the professionalism you need to have on the fly, on your feet, in the middle of everything, dealing with your own work, your medical staff, right, interacting with the doctors and the nurses, and then as well as the cops. A lot of times, police officers would bring in criminals or victims of crimes, and we'd have to just engage with all these different people in different ways at different times. The families of the victims, the family of the perpetrators. Like, there's a lot of incredibly, at times, dynamic, complex social interactions that you'd have to have a lot of quick-witted grace and wisdom about how to handle, and what to say, and how to know what to say, what not to say, when to say it, who to let someone else say something to. Of course, that wasn't all on me, but I mean, a lot of those moments I would be in the middle of, or have to say something about to somebody, because I'd be the lowest rung on the ladder. So they'd be like, Daniel, go welcome the family back to the dead loved one. Go talk to these people and tell them this information, relay this, whatever. So you're always, there's always this dynamic that's pretty heavy stuff, man. I mean, there's not much else in life that compares to those moments, because they're kind of the make or break, end all be all for people. So yeah, So that gave me a lot more confidence, I think. You know, what's for me, that's what really kind of pushed me over the edge in a lot of ways, because I was like, how many of the people of any age may ever experience some of the things that I've experienced? There's so many people who will never, right, work in a hospital or have those experiences. And that knowledge of just what it's like to see someone pass on, right, to the great beyond, or to see life come into the world too. I mean, many people experience that, but I mean, we all did physically, of course, but I mean from third person. um, but that's just still like those moments of life coming into the world and life exiting the world and everything that surrounds that, really changes. I think should change a person as it did me, and that should build someone's confidence. I think, and at least this assertion of many things in their life. But that's where I think for me confidence grew a lot at a young age. But it even took some guts, I think, just to apply and just to say I want this job and to be able to get it. You know, because they wouldn't hire a lot of younger people who wanted the job. But I was actually it was incredible. I was the youngest person they ever hired in that department at that time. Um, I just turned 18, but it was awesome. It was I would never trade it for anything, but I also don't really want to go back to it. There's moments and parts of it I miss. Some of the excitement, some of the morbid curiosity, if we're being honest, like just the bodily functions of everything, and um, that's just human curiosity, I think. And the and just that moment of revelation too, of seeing someone come back to life, like who was medically clinically dead, and then they're back. That's crazy. That's remarkable to see. Um, there's so much. There's just I don't know. There's just so much in there that this is kind of mind blowing and exciting and fascinating. Um, so yeah, those experiences were awesome. I'll never trade them for anything. But I'm so much happier on the path I am now compared to where I was headed. But that was the war that was fought between me and myself and I. Uh, it was an interest in the arts as a way of release from the hard sciences during university and my time in the ER and then the hospital, and then also like trying to convince myself that there was nothing wrong with finding joy in doing something that didn't immediately feel like it was altruistic. It's not like this tangible thing where you're immediately helping somebody and they're benefiting the world. Like I think I just wanted so much purpose. I wanted so much significance, not to be praised for anything, just that I wanted my life to matter and I felt to feel like it mattered, as what I was doing really would have an impact, a positive impact on others. Um, it took me a really long time to a real long time is relative, I guess, but I mean, it took me a while just to, as a child, as a younger person, to figure out you can make a huge positive impact through the arts. Definitely, like the arts do form culture. They are an expression of many things, beliefs and ideas and perspectives, and of course, eventually I was like, well, what impacted me so much as a child? The arts, the films that my dad exposed me to, like those were tremendous influences in my life. So yeah, it just took me a bit to kind of get away from feeling guilty almost that I was trying to do something that I really enjoyed versus something that I felt more almost like a duty or an obligation to do, um, for a sense of purpose and meaning and to sort of earn my place on the planet. Um, so yeah, but anyway, so those were some of the impacting events kind of in general for me as a kid. I guess like my curiosity always got the better of me. That's why I pursued the things I did too. It's like I want to see what's behind that veil. I want to see what's behind that closed door. I want to know the truth, even if it's scary. That's always been my take, and it's still what my take is now. I want even if the truth like goes against my bias. I want to know the truth. I don't want to know bias. I want to know facts. I want to know what is reality, not what someone's leaning is or opinion. What can we how can we get to like the bone? How can we get to the core? Even if it's scary. That's what I always was most excited about. So now as someone asked, I remember like last stream or two streams ago, they're like, why don't you just project the face onto the other face? Because this is a scan from, they scan Keanu's face for the game Cyberpunk, which is pretty famous now. And this is him now. So this is him, or like recently, whatever, like how many, a few years ago. So I would think maybe there's been a little bit of change in the face, of course, a little bit more weight in the face and whatever. But I had sculpted him already and was a little off, and now I'm just sort of getting to the nitty gritty here of things. The reason I'm not projecting it straight on because his expression's neutral, and I want to go for a bit more of the expression we're seeing here in this photo, where he's wincing. He's got that, the pinching of the nasal and the brow area, and the cheeks are being lifted up a little bit. The mouth is open slightly. So the expression isn't neutral, obviously. It's actually more extreme, but not the most extreme. So I'm making those adjustments here as I push it along to, as you can see, there's a transparency here going on from the underlying neutral expression to the one here. And then I save my camera angle so I can snap back to this and then fade in between so I can see it's pretty lined up. I think it's a little off actually, but I could just do it. So if you ever do this, I've saved my cameras like in the UI out here, but if you ever want to do the same, you come up to document, then come down to Z app link properties, and then just come here and say clear to custom one. And just gonna make some quick adjustments. Head's actually slightly tilted. It might even be better to actually use the head scan itself so I can match it even more precisely. And then fix the camera. So even here, see, like with the real scan, you can even still see where the expression creates discrepancies. It creates differences. And you can see like the weight in the neck, difference in there. Younger, slightly more fit Keanu versus older. This is because they were training like animals, man. They were training hardcore for this stuff like all the time. From what I've seen in the behind the scenes, before they, so I'm gonna lock that in now. Before they were, before they filmed. So there's a certain amount of just high metabolism that they were going through that I'm sure it's not a daily thing now for them, but that'll create a huge difference just as how lean they were for those films versus how they look now, which is probably more their more natural base weight versus when you're like hyper training all the time, daily or even just weekly, compared to when you're not doing that. Anyway, what are we missing here in the chat? Holy shit, your work is amazing. Oh, Skinny, thank you. Skinny Wig. Wish more people did 3D work on Twitch. I often train at the gym that has a placard with the words "No pain, no pain." Well, that's something. Do you mean no pain, no gain, or do you mean no pain, no pain? Doing anatomy and skull sculpts and getting better steadily. I'd love to do something conceptual, but having trouble taking the leap into asymmetrical, and just knowing what the heck to do. Thoughts? Don't be afraid of asymmetry. I know the feeling. I know what you mean because I was there too. Don't be afraid. Just get out of it. I mean, get your symmetry, get your facial structure, your skull structure. Work in symmetry up to a certain point, right? Work it to the point where you have, if you're doing a likeness, or even just trying to make a skull, everything's asymmetrical in the end, right? No one's that perfect, unless you're making a robot. So, I mean, there might be one person out there that has like perfectly symmetrical eyes or whatever, but that's like 0.0001%, such a small percentile of the human population. Vast majority of everybody has asymmetry. So work your face that you're making your likeness up to the point where it matches at least one side pretty close, unless the eyes are so off where it's like it almost would be double work to, like, you know what I mean, too much work to get one whole side match and the other side's gonna be so off. But get to that point where you see that it's as close as you can be without having to do backtrack work so exponentially long that it's just gonna be, you know what I mean? Find that happy middle place where at least one side's pretty close, if not exactly matching, and then turn off your symmetry and then start making those adjustments to the other side, and make sure you save your camera angles so that you can snap to, and you can save your cameras out too. Like you can actually save your camera. Here's like save views right here. Boom. So you can actually save this camera wherever you want, just like a file like you do for your ZTL files. So you can load your ZTL Mac, load your scene, I should say, really, and load your camera so you can have everything lock right back to where it was before. Actually, I should do that now, speaking of which, because I haven't done that before and I keep realigning stuff, and I did a good job now. So I will take my own advice. It'll save it as a WV or a VWS file. Sorry, my dyslexia kicking in there. So there you go. So now you can just reference back to your face. But yeah, don't be afraid of asymmetry. That's your next step. If that's what you're afraid of, then that's what you got to conquer next. If you've gotten enough sculptural ability that you're moving into, you know, doing something that scares you a little bit, that's good. Like, that's how you grow. Just start doing it. Just do it. Just start. Just don't be afraid of, like, it's like the cold water. If you dip your toe in, you're like, oh, it's too cold, I don't want to go in. Just jump in, man. Just do it. Just don't even think about it. Just hold your breath and do it, and you'll acclimate quickly. You'll learn, you know, get thrown to the deep end. You're gonna learn to swim because it's sink or swim. So just do it. Don't be afraid. Get rid of your fear. There is no spoon. Just want to let you know you are making a positive impact in the arts with your stories, advice, and positivity during your live streams. I have many saved to listen back to for inspiration. Oh wow, thanks, Comics Legend. I appreciate it. I hope it helps people. I'm glad it's helping somebody. I appreciate it. I meant no pain, no gain. Okay, yeah. But pain is the best motivational factor in life. Most great fears are achieved through great pain. Oh, feats. I was like, fears? Most great feats. Sorry. Can't read. Are achieved. The text is very small for me from here, too. So I'm like, gotta get glasses or something. Gotta get a new prescription. Most great feats are achieved through great pain. This is true. Absolutely true. Well, you know, the actual definition of the word passion, the origin of it, means suffering. Passion, people think it's just, oh, they're just in love with this thing and it's all just roses and cherries and sugar and spice and everything. No, it's pain, dude. It's pain. Passion really does mean pain, suffering. That's why that film, The Passion of the Christ, it's not that Christ is passionate about dying. Well, he is, but not in the sense that we colloquially all use the word passion. It's like, oh, he's so passionate. No, I mean, it's almost like passion being used for like romantic passion. It's almost kind of misused, really. It's almost like a misnomer. We should say excited or deeply in love, or some other word that sort of reflects that. But real passion, I mean, I guess if you want to say like they're suffering for love, I guess that kind of makes, but we don't use it in that real term. When people say they're passionate, we think excited and love and enraptured and just all these positive things. But ironically, passion means suffering. And that's what a lot of us do for our art. We suffer. That's life. But through great suffering, as Alex said, you can read all right. As he said, it's through pain that we achieve much in life. So now we're seeing the differences here, like in the neck. Different is the head pose mixed with a little less weight, and yeah, the body position that's making these subtle changes here between his current scan, which is transparent, and my version. So I'm just using move topological so it doesn't move too much. Keeps it a bit more localized and focused when I get a bigger brush size here. Ah, auto-saving. Sorry, and I got so many subtools open, so it's going to take a minute. But it lets me eat some more soup. Any other questions or anything else I can help anybody with while we're waiting? Love and pain are Siamese twins. Yeah. That's one way to define it. There's a great line in John Wick 3, speaking of Keanu, with what's her name? The actress. I can't think of her name right now. I'm sorry. It escapes me. Is it Angela? Angela Bassett? Angela Bassett? No. Is that right? Shoot. Ah, screw it. I'm gonna IMDb it quick. Can't think of her name. It's like on the tip of my mind, but I can't. What is her name? Angelica Houston. There we go. Jeez, not Angela Bassett. Angelica Houston. I need to start with an A. This great line where she's like walking John through a certain. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. It's not a crucial scene for those who haven't seen it, but watch John Wick 3. All of them, if you haven't. They're awesome. But there's this line where she's walking him through a ballerina school or school of the arts, essentially. And she says to him, what'd she say? We all have to. What is he? Something like, we suffer for our art. You know, life, something, something. And then she's like, life is pain. Work or art is suffering, something like that, or passion is suffering. I forget. She says it so nonchalantly, and yet it's like, and right when she's saying it, it's nasty. This, which is it's a common injury in ballet. A ballerina is looking at them like kind of like seriously, kind of like, what do you guys want? While she's walking Keanu and giving him this whole little speech, and right when she says life is suffering, and this girl pulls off her toenail, just like it's just like, oh god, oh fun. But she's like speaking truths, you know. I'm just like, that's reality. I mean, my sister took ballet for a while, and it's rough, man. That's rough on the body. That's just that's on your toes, like the wood blocks inside the shoe. Mm-mm. No gracias. Yeah, but it's the truth. I mean, how many times can we think of somebody who was born into an incredibly wealthy family and did incredible works of art or achievements generally? It's almost always, if not pretty much like 99% or 100% of the time, it's always somebody who was born to a either in poverty or just a general like lower or middle class family, right? Or circumstance, if not worse, and then they're the ones who rise up to make these great achievements, who work with passion, who work hard, suffer and blood, sweat and tears, as the cliche goes, to achieve something great, right? That's always the case. You don't really see kids who are born into these incredibly privileged homes, right, where they're just given a silver spoon in their mouth. They're given everything they want. Their parents haven't instilled in them a good, healthy, working, knowledge, a work ethic, excuse me. And and it's even the guys who've made it huge. So many of them they didn't even graduate college. Like they just dropped out. Go dropouts. But I mean, I only did it because I realized I didn't need a degree and didn't you need to keep paying for college when it wouldn't have helped me at all with what I'm doing in my life. Um, and so much of life is just not. It's not about where you went to school or what you chose to study. It seems to matter to people when you're very young or when you're at that age, but the reality of the world is like people aren't asking you all that they shouldn't be asking you all the time. Like, where'd you go to school and what'd you major in? What's your degree? Like, no one kind of gives a shit after a while. Like, there's really you plateau. A lot of people in general plateau in life. They're not continually upping their game when it comes to the intellectual depths that they're striving to grow in, right? A lot of people don't, a lot of people who've gone to college or universities do not keep reading a lot after university. Many do, but there's a lot who don't. They get turned off by it because it was just what they had to do for school, right? Um, I love audiobooks. I love learning. But that didn't come from university. It came from the interests of my life and the interests of my family, you know, and their influence on my life, and what they encouraged me to pursue and take an interest in, and just even learn to appreciate. I was talking about this with my neighbor the other day. We actually went for a walk or a jog, I guess you could say, on a nice trail by this area, and she and I were talking, and she's like my adopted aunt, so we get along great. She has a corgi too, so we walk our corgis together a lot of times. We'll text each other and be like, "Hey, you guys want to meet up?" And so like her corgi is a female and mine's a male, so they are like dating, kind of. Our corgis are infatuated with each other, but he gets a little too friendly and frisky with hers, and so then hers is like, "Nah, back off." Anyway, we were talking about just all these different interests and just just how just how important it is to learn to love learning, right? And so we were recounting, she was recounting, and I was recounting from my childhood. She was recounting from being a mother to her two kids, and she has a boy and a girl too. Just as my sister and I are the only two kids in our immediate family, and we're just recounting going to museums a lot as little kids. So I was homeschooled through most of my life. I don't mention that a lot. I just it doesn't come up a lot. But so we didn't have we didn't have to necessarily have like the same kind of field trips that regular school did. But I think we had better ones in a lot of ways, depending on which museums we went to. But we lived in Pennsylvania, so we were in a great location to go to Smithsonian. So we went to Smithsonian. Also went to Boston and went to the I remember the science. I loved the science museum up in Boston, but I haven't been to it since I've been back to Boston multiple times. I should go because I remember it was so cool when I was younger. But I've been to the Smithsonian so many times and to all the different major museums. I love, of course, as a dinosaur nut. I love the Natural History Museum. That was my favorite. But then Air and Space Museum was freaking cool too, and that at the time was like one of the only IMAXs like in the region in the area that we lived in. So that was always a thrill to go see some new IMAX film, which was all space or science oriented. Excuse me. And the art museum, of course, was awesome. My sister really loved the art museum. She kind of liked the space museum, but I was always like, let's go see the dinosaur bones. I want to go stay in the dinosaur hall forever. Yeah, I mean, so that was the mall there in DC. It was just a huge influence on me as a kid. So that was a lot of our family vacations were like sort of the mixture of I mean, sometimes we'd go on field trips, but most of the time it was like our family vacations were actually like educational vacations. We'd stay at a nice hotel and then go to these awesome museums. And it's funny because I was so young and just didn't know any better, so I didn't know that most people go on vacation, they go to like a beach to just hang out and have fun. I was like, we're gonna go learn and see things. Like, wow! I was so enamored with that, and I'm grateful that those were often our family vacations. Were that I mean, I had so much fun, but I just know that that wasn't a lot of like other friends of mine who attended regular school, and I knew them from church as well. Mostly, it was a lot of my social interaction as a small child. Was like youth group and that kind of thing, and so many of them would come back and say like, oh yeah, we went to like Cancun, or we went to what was another beach they would go to, like Hilton Head, or Delaware Beach, or they just whatever, they were just all these different Cape May, yeah, oh, my parents have a place in Martha's Vineyard, whatever, like if they were really wealthy. I just remember hearing that all the time as a kid and just being like, oh, okay, what'd you learn or what'd you do? I don't know, we just hung out, we went around town, we had fun. Like I was like, that's it, I don't know. Now it's just funny the way life works out, and now it's like I live in a vacation destination now, which is kind of ironic. And yet I don't really, I mean, even when there wasn't the pandemic and lockdown, I didn't I won't go out a lot to like hang out at bars. Like it's, to me, that's so unproductive, and I don't really wind up meeting like fascinating intellectual people. I mean, sometimes because I am like centered in between like SpaceX and Tesla and Raytheon and
Northrop Grumman and a bunch of friends of my friends work at Northrop, and these are all like where they build like rockets and satellites and all these really cool technical stuff for space. So I'm really actually in a cool hub right now, and a central location where there are brainiacs. But still, I mean, the odds of meeting someone like that, they're really highly intelligent, productive people too. So we're not all just killing time at the bars usually. So it's funny. I still find myself enjoying spending more time like working on passion projects, or with friends from those companies or those kind of industries. We all go out and we'll grab a drink now and then, or we would have gotten together more often, go out and play volleyball together. But still, our discussions were probably not the average bar discussions. I'd always be fascinated to hear what they're working on that they can talk about, because there's so much they can't talk about. But just to hear about, what's it like to work at Tesla? Like the last 3 roommates I had before I decided to live alone, right before the pandemic, thank God, they all worked at Tesla. And so I'd always get these kind of slightly insider views on what it's like in Tesla, and what it's like when they've kind of brushed up against Elon and said some things to him, or he said some things to them, or their coworkers. And I'm a nerd in that sense. Like, I just found that so much more interesting than so much else that we hear, all the other kind of conversations in the bar. Just never really cared about sports all that much, so it's always just fascinating to hear more about people working in the sciences and engineering and technology, and what the future might be like and where things are going. And that to me is just, that's awesome. That's fascinating. Um, but usually, generally, better had discussions that aren't inebriated either. You can only have so much depth and brain power usage before the alcohol takes a little bit too much of the articulation away. So yeah, it's just my childhood and my life, I think, are just not exactly the norm, but that's fine. That's where paths diverge. But anyway, but yeah, I'm just matching ear anatomy here. I know this is probably not that interesting, but I could do projection again, but again, like, it's just I could mask some of this and try to project it, but it can often, because the ear geometry is so close and so thin, it's very challenging to get a good projection. That's why I'm not doing projection, because when you have geometry that's so close to itself, invariably you're gonna get these pieces that just go like right through each other. Polygons go flying everywhere, and it's just almost more work to correct that than it is just to do this now. Um, I can show you a couple methods though for projection too before I jump off here, because I'm getting close to being overtime. Just gonna mask the ear here quickly, and then unmask the areas I don't want to mask. And I'll show you a couple different techniques for projecting here. So you both will see what I'm talking about avoiding, but also know what you could do for other areas of a character, creature, object, face, whatever, to get areas of one model to shrink wrap essentially, to match another piece of the model. And did I miss anything in chat? Angelica Houston, yeah. Hi. Uh, is it uh, who's in? Sorry, who's in? Sorry. Hello. Uh, kids are successful family. Kids from successful families may regress toward the mean. Yeah. Hey Daniel, why was I homeschooled? In my country, homeschooled kids usually the rich ones. Huh, interesting. No, we definitely weren't rich. We were definitely like middle class. Kids nowadays still do that. Okay, yeah. Hey. Yeah, I was actually pretty ridiculed and pretty bullied, of all places, in church and in youth group, which speaks horribly for any church, for any parents of the kids who went to that church. I mean, granted, I had a lot of nice friends too, but I mean, I remember it just being like, "Are you guys being jerks? Aren't Christians supposed to be like nice people? Like, aren't you taught the way I was taught?" um, but I was homeschooled. It started, really short story, could be longer. My whole family, we were all involved in a really bad car accident when I was 5, and at that time too, I wasn't really enjoying school very much. I think I I wanted to be home, and I love my family a lot. So I was actually excited at that young age to be homeschooled. But what led to it was this really horrible car accident. A miracle we all survived, because we almost hit an 18-wheeler, like a giant tractor trailer, like semi truck, just coming down the opposite lane. But my mom was. It was almost fortuitous this happened, but mom was driving whatever reason. She rarely I mean, she didn't drive nearly as much as my dad was always the driver, but for whatever reason, she wanted to drive that day, so she did. And my dad was the passenger seat. My sister was sitting to my right, and I was behind my mother from the passenger or the driver's side in the back seat. So we were all, thank God, we all were buckled in, seatbelts, and we were stopped on a 4-lane highway. It wasn't really a highway, but it was like a local highway, you know what I mean? So like people were doing 40, maybe at the most, and you were just waiting to turn left to make a turn down a road, and traffic was all moving normally, passing us by. We were in the middle lane, I guess, to turn left, and maybe maybe it was actually a 2-lane highway with a middle turning lane, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably what it was. Anyway, we're sitting there, and I remember hearing like tires screeching, like the sound of someone hitting the brakes really hard, or taking a turn really hard. We couldn't really remember, or know what it was. But, and one of us, maybe it was me or someone else, said, "Up, someone's gonna get hit." Somebody said that in the car. I don't remember who it was. But the irony was that it was us. So we heard that screeching of tires, and then like a few seconds later, like enough. Or it wasn't like someone said that as we were getting hit. We said that and we were just waiting to turn, and then bam, we just get nailed from behind. This guy was driving, escaping, like running away from the cops. Hit us at about like 50 some miles an hour, like just devastated the back of our car. And they said from analyzing the car during the trial and everything that it was a miracle that we didn't have more gasoline in the tank, because it's so much of that tank got crushed, and a lot of the metal from that side of the car, because it hit us on the right side diagonally. So it hit us on the right rear, and a lot of the force went diagonally across the car, which is where we got projected into the other lane, oncoming traffic. Because a lot of that metal on that whole side of the car kind of wrapped around my sister. Thank God it didn't go through her, but it kind of like curved around her. Kind of miraculous. And we went flying to the front of this oncoming traffic. And as we were going, my mother just had enough immediate reaction to just like hard turn to the right. And so we went forward toward the 18-wheeler with a trailer behind it, and then curved we just barely missed that 18-wheeler, and then we were curving so hard, but hit so fast, hit so hard forward that with her turning the wheel hard right, we just did this massive curve forward and then landed in the ditch on the right, just missing a few other vehicles as we were, projected forward. And we hit the ditch, and the hit was, and I remember so much of it in slow motion. When we got hit, we went forward so hard, and then as she was turning, all of us swung to the left because of inertia, like the centrifugal force. And so I smashed my head against the C-pillar, right? And my dad, when he got hit, I think he hit the dashboard with his head. My mom, she was the whole, so much of the steering column and the seat broke and like dropped down when we landed the ditch. So she was pinned between the steering wheel and her legs, and the back seat fell back on me. And my dad was unconscious for a while, and my sister, I think she was fine. She was just crying. She was really traumatized, but she was in some pain because I think some of that cushioning and stuff like really hit her hard. And I just remember panicking and like screaming and crying out when my sister said she wasn't sure if she was feeling good. I started like screaming out, praying like, "Oh God, don't let my sister die!" Like freaking out. But yeah, so I had headaches and migraines for years after that, for a long time, but they went away eventually. My mom was paralyzed for like a year after that, and my dad suffered no real injuries, remarkably, which is like a miracle because he was a breadwinner. Like he was making the money. If he had been in the driver's seat, our whole lives may have been much more radically just devastated than what they were already after that. But because of that, my mom didn't like sending us on the bus as we were kids, and when I was a kid, and we were going to a nice private school. But even then, I just didn't like school that much. I didn't like. I was bullied a bit, because I was just a nice kid, I guess. I don't know, and there were just some dicks. Kids are cruel, no matter where you are. So that's why we became homeschooled, and yeah, and then once once she got better, so my dad was like, he really stepped up. He like would bathe her, come home from work after a full day of work, bathe her, change her, feed her, carry her into the bathroom and everywhere else. Just total hero, like just totally manned up and was just a loving father, patient, intelligent, just, made our lives still filled with joy, and so did my mom for as much as she could. Um so a lot of our homeschooling was like self-taught. Like we'd have to self-discipline and just sit down and do the work and then show her it, have her approve it, have her give us tests, and she'd lay in bed and just read to us. And she was able to start ambulating more and more as time went on, but she saw countless doctors. They had to go to trial because this kid who hit us, it was like some guy who was in his 20s, was the son of a diplomat. So he was running from the cops, but then they were able to get out of a lot of the issues because of diplomatic immunity. So they weren't able to really arrest him and imprison him because of that, which was just like our luck, right? So convenient. So the compensation was not nearly as enough because of the amount of medical treatment that my mother needed for years. But seeing my dad really step up, I think that really impacted me in a good way too, just to show me what a real man is, and what a man is made of. A good father. So I think in that sense, I have like storybook parents, like fairy tale parents, in that they stayed together where other men would have probably just cut and run. Um, he just stepped up, he was the man. And just that great mixture, that rare mixture of confident, kind, intelligent, well educated, well read, always reading all the time, just upping his game and his career. It's just amazing. Like when I think about it, like just how much he was able to achieve with so much on his plate. And just really just an incredible guy, and I love him. He's like, I respect him so much. He's just a great guy. So yeah, so that was why we became homeschooled. And I think after like middle school, I really didn't like being homeschooled that much, mostly because I was being ostracized and othered by my peers and youth group and whatever, and in through other friends of friends in the neighborhood. Granted, again, had a lot of decent friends, but there were always people who just would antagonize you about being homeschooled and assume you're just really weird, when often it was because I was exposed to so many doctors and nurses who would come in the house, and then all my parents' friends would come in to help my mom and visit as well, from time to time, and family, and they were all older, like they were all adults. So sometimes they'd have kids that come in and play with us or whatever, but a lot of times we just have to learn to converse with adults. And so I think then too, like films became this great escape as well, and this great entertainment. Video games helped a bit. Having a dog and then some cats really helped too, and just so many ways, like multi-tier purposes there. Like animals really teach kids compassion, should teach kids compassion and empathy, and giving them responsibility, something to take care of, all that. But yeah, so that was a pretty. It could have been a much rougher road, but that was a huge like road bump, no pun intended, um, which is what led my life as a child to be homeschooled, and then pretty much through high school, which kept going. And yeah, but it's funny because I remember when I was younger, I'd always be so worried about state tests when I was first starting to do that, like state exams, because they would evaluate your knowledge of what you're learning, of course, to make sure that you're to par with what the state standard was. And I remember being so nervous because I always thought like homeschooling just was natural for me. It flowed as far as learning went, and never really felt too hard. But I was always so nervous when I'd first go for the first couple of years of taking like state standardized testing, and then I'd come out of there and be like, "That was it? What are they teaching these kids in these schools? Like this is really basic, or like really easy. Like the hell?" And yeah, that's public schooling for you. I guess they just kept the bar low, compared to like the level of homeschooling and I've seen this so much with homeschooled kids. Like they just are achievers. So many of them, they really are. And I'm not to praise myself because I wasn't some academic, like genius or anything. I just mean so many of them think differently. They think outside the box. They're braver in a lot of ways to go against counterculture, just to do their own thing, just to think outside the box, as the cliche is, and just achieve and just do what they're interested in and love learning. And there's this coalescence of life and learning that happened there that's different, I think, than like a traditional school. And that's not to say that anyone who's gone to public or private schools, traditional schools, are at any disadvantage, but I just think I've seen so much of homeschooled kids have this different kind of confidence and assertion because they often have to be different, and they have to be more alone and be okay with being alone and being more introspective and just intellectually different and stimulating. So and yeah, there's a lot of them who are weird too. Don't get me wrong. It's funny because I was homeschooled, and yet I didn't want to hang out with other homeschooled kids because I always thought, not only thought, I saw a lot of them were awkward. Some of them were very intelligent and just awkward, and some of them were just awkward, just weird. And so I remember as a kid just being like, "Oh, I want to hang out with the kids who go to regular school. They seem more normal to me." Um, yeah. So anyway, that's my. Sorry, it's just a long story, but that's my homeschooled journey slash giant car accident story, which is traumatic. Elon Musk is one audacious genius. Yes, he is. Can you tell me ZBrush Core 2021 support 3D connection mouse? I don't know for sure. I would hope so. I would think so, since I would think those basic fundamentals of navigation would be the same. So I would say yes, but you probably want to reach out to Pixologic for an official answer or search for it. But I think I would assume so because navigation doesn't really get stripped away at all. Like your ability to rotate, navigate, zoom in and out, all that stays the same. So yeah. I'm going a little overtime here, sorry. Joey, sorry to ask, and the reason to be sorry. Survived the miracle is a miracle. Yeah. Wow, so that's unconditional love. Yeah. Some people do have pets just for fashion and have fun with it. Yeah. Da, 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 da. When you were homeschooled, did you choose your own specific objects? By objects, what do you mean? Oh, subjects. Okay. Not really. I mean, there were certain ones where you have electives. Yeah, I remember that, and that's where I could have chose. I don't remember what the other option was. I just remember when I saw animal science as a focus for biology, I was like, I want to study more zoology. I want to study more of that because I loved animals and science. Um, for me, not work. Oh, it doesn't work for you in ZBrush Core. Wow, that's weird. Huh. Okay. I thought, wow, so you already have one and it's not working. Man, well, I would think you could sell it pretty easily because I know they're pretty sought after mice. Um, Sorry to hear that. I mean, or hang on to it, and when you can afford to, upgrade to regular ZBrush, the full package, and use it then. You know, that would be my suggestion. Shit. Okay, so ear projection. So there's a couple methods here we can do, or for any projection, really. It always helps to get things close, at least ballparky close. So for this area, stop switching. No, there we go. You got your brush, so you got Z project here, and you want to do back face mask on. I think it's been a while since I tried this, and then do sub because you want to press it against the object that's beneath it. So we're going to do a solid. So we undo transparency, and then we just brush here. But as you can see, it can really get kind of like it's projecting like from camera view straight down, straight onto the canvas. So there's no like understanding of form. It's just pushing forward, pushing down, right? Or if something's raised above, so let's say if I push this, wrong thing. All right, so I use move, push it down, and I want it to match that. Let me bring his subdivisions up here on his other head, so that's a bit smoother. I want to bring that up now, so I want to bring this ear part raised up. So we switch the Z project to add, right? Z add instead of Z sub, and now you'll see it's raising that a bit, and I hit smooth, and it'll kind of cover up that, but yeah, still, not the best results. So, in your other method of this is the what is it? The match? What's it called? The matchmaker. It's another way of doing it. It just kind of draws it out from this square. So I can pull it this way, and it's kind of doing the same thing. As you can see here, it's smearing that ear, the geo of the ear, just past the ear. So it's again just pressing down, but like from a radiating central area. So again, if you can do it from an area where it's just going to need to go straight down, that can kind of work, right? Let's check the interior here, see if it's getting weird in there. No, not yet. So turn off RGB. So let's see if we can do. I wonder if back face masking does any effect here. Oh wow, it does a weird thing. Huh. Never noticed that. Wait, why is it pulling it up? That's so weird. That's weird. Why is it pulling it outward? I think that's a glitch because it really shouldn't be doing that unless it's something being pressed. Like it's almost like Alt is being pressed. Like when you hold move and you do hold, or yeah, hold Alt and you pull it out. That's what happens. But why is Matchmaker doing that? That's weird. Hmm. Weird. I guess because it's trying to match what's coming up later. I don't know. It's so weird. Anyway, again, not the best way. I mean, it's fine if there's something like really broad and flat that's not going to go bleed over the edge. But for this scenario, either also it's not good. So the better solution would be to actually do three-dimensional projection. So if you want to come down here, so in your subtool palette, you come over to project, and usually leaving these where they are is a good place to start. Your pixel or project all blur. I usually bring that down a bit because I usually don't want it. I want it to be more crisp, but I don't want it to be too like muddy, too like too smooth. And then you just hit project all, and as predicted, you can see these polygons are just being ripped into the ear, but the rest of it actually doesn't look too bad. So this is where you got to like gauge: is it worth it to keep this and fix that, or to go back and just make all the adjustments manually? This is kind of a 50-50. Like, this is kind of maybe not even a 50-50, maybe like a 60-40. Like, it might be worth it to keep this as it is. So to get a better view, I'm just going to do this. Just hide everything else. Just expose the ear. Mr. Reeves. Mr. Anderson. What are the questions? Older 3D connection pilot. Okay, gotcha. So that's the use of ZProject. Nice. Yeah. Maybe I'll do a series of clown faces, have unique expressions. That could be fun. Just have to remember to stay away from details too soon. Yeah. All right. So here I'm just smoothing out these radically projected, pinched polygons, and then I'm holding Shift and then letting go to smooth this out. There's some more that have been pulled a little bit. So with projection, it's always kind of a hairy mess in some ways. I mean, there's always like compromises made here and there initially to get things to match properly. This is why, again, ZWrap I'm a huge advocate for it, because it just does such a great job. It really it can do this if you don't put enough points on it. You don't give it enough points to compare. But a lot of it, when you do enough points, when you add enough points, you get some pretty incredible results that are great. And it respects masks too, so you can mask and hide areas that you don't want to project that are maybe too close together, or that don't matter if you don't need to project, like inside the mouth bag and all that, or the eye bag, different areas that get really problematic very quickly. So anyway, but yeah, so that's probably your best option for things like this, where you want to match something to something else. And then here's some weird geo where you can see there's like pulled over itself. So yeah, projection's always kind of a pain in the ass. But it's just part of the process. Now we can see the darker one is the underlined scan of Mr. Reeves, and our lighter colored gray is the one that is my version. So I'm just holding Alt and clicking to bring up the ear portions cartilage slightly, just to bring it over the surface of the area a little bit. And that's all I'm doing here. It's just, holding Alt and pulling away from the normal's direction so that it embraces the volume. Then hitting smooth. And there we go. All right, ladies and gents, this is probably the closing point. Closing time. Yeah. So, here's his ear. Come on, work with me. So we will get to the other portions of his face next time. And again, eventually I'm going to get on stream on my Twitch to do this stuff off of this stream just to expedite the process, because I feel like an hour for each thing is just not enough. But again, I'll just give you my social media links so you guys can follow my other stuff. So pretty much on every site that you want to find my work or me on, you can just search this handle. Just if I can type Daniel Lyon Arts. So that's me on IG, Twitter, Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. And Twitch is twitch.tv/Daniel Lyon Arts. So yeah, that's my social media. If you want to follow me on Instagram, that'd be great. That's the best place to keep up with what I'm going to do next, or my upcoming podcast that's coming out, as well as, oh, and if you want to see my site, if anyone wants to see my work and they haven't before, you can see a lot of my work on there. Let's see, last couple things. Fine, I'm learning a lot more by not starting with any base meshes and just using pure ref for photo reference. Yeah. By the way, do you know where to get texture material? Is it from Substance Designer? Somewhat. I mean, Substance Designer is like you're making your you can buy stuff, I guess, that's already pre-made or whatever, download it. But I don't really use Substance Designer actually. I should eventually probably learn it, but it's not like a necessary thing. You textures, I mean, there's like what kind of textures? That's, I guess, the question. You can find some on Turbo Squid. You can find some at texture.com, I believe, or textures.com. There's a lot of textures there. You can where else? I'm trying to think of I mean, XYZ textures, like they're mostly human, I think, and like fabric and feathers and that kind of thing, and fur, but I think it's just called Texture XYZ or XYZ Texture, something like that. That's a major site. Yeah, but there's not like a one-stop shop where I go to buy textures a lot. I just search for things, and often we'll just take a photo, either personally take a photo of something if I can, or search and find someone that's already shot something I'm looking for that's high resolution enough, and then just go into black and white if I need to make it like an alpha, or or just edit it so that it can be tiled. You can create some pretty awesome textures in Mixer, which is like competition for Substance, but it's free. from Quixel. Using Quixel Mixer and Bridge, they have an incredible materials, textures library where you can really kind of make your own textures in a very user friendly, like easy way to understand. Um, yeah, I mean that's what I'd recommend right now. I mean otherwise, yeah, there's all kinds of different sites that you can buy, like textures from too, if you just want to pay for textures that are high res 4K. But yeah, I mean that's sorry, I don't have the best answer for you. And so much of my texturing I've done it in ZBrush as well, and Photoshop, and now of course in Substance, and that lets you create a lot of customized things that are they're procedural. That's what I was looking for. Procedural generation. So it has a certain level of randomness to it, and you can layer many different textures and different elements onto them so that it creates a disrupted visual look. It doesn't look so uniform. Um, so yeah, that's what I recommend for textures in general. Sorry, it's not like there's a one place to go, but yeah. So anyway, I think we're gonna wrap it here. We're almost at 3 hours. So geez, time flies. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, people. I appreciate the attention and the positive feedback. And if you guys have any questions, you can email me if you really have a burning question at daniel@lion-arts.com. So yeah, give me a like or a follow on Instagram. Please feel free to like this, like the video as well. And yeah, we'll be in touch. Quixel Mixer, what is it? Iced Mega? Is Mega? Mega Scans, yeah. Mixer uses Mega Scans. Yeah, so sorry, I guess I was thinking Mixer is where you use Mega Scans. I should have said Mega Scans, but yeah, that's a Mega Scans. There you go. So get an Unreal account. You can get an Unreal account for free, and then you can get access to all of Megascan's library of textures for free, which is huge. So, all right, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys soon.